Her network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Zingo TV is a free app that can be downloaded on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks, and all TVs 2016 and forward. Live Now is a show all about finding the synergy and body-minded spirit. Please join us as we tackle intense topics of conversation that will spur your mind, steer your soul, and give you some direction. With that said, we are excited to dive into tonight's topic with you. Hello and welcome back. Tonight is a great topic that Chuck and I really believe in, that we have seen it over and over again in parenting, in business, just in communication all over, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're with friends or business partners. When emotions are high, your intellect is low. And when we talk about that, what does that really mean? What does it mean that when your emotions are high, your intellect's low? It means that you are basing everything that you're saying based off that emotion you're feeling. So if you're angry and frustrated, all that you're creating, all the decisions you're making is literally based off that feeling of anger and frustration. And what happens when that anger and frustration no longer exists? You're stuck with the decisions you made. So Chuck and I were talking about, especially now with what's going on, we got what's going on in Israel. We still have what's going on in the Ukraine. We got elections coming up. There's just a lot of division right now going on. And so, Chuck and I were talking, we're like, yeah, this is a great topic to talk about.
No, absolutely, Veenu. And, it's interesting right now. There's this kind of ideology, this dogpiling ideology that's been going on social media and all these different platforms. And people go, well, what does that have to do with when emotions are high and intellect is low? It's like, well, there's this herd mentality. And there are tendencies for folks when they feel that there are topics of conversation that are threatening or a little bit on the fringe, that they're looking for alignment. They're looking for other people that are going to actually buy into their narrative too. So we start to do who moved my cheese. If we're nervous about not having enough cheese, we start hoarding. Oh, from over here, and ooh, so let's go and grab more of this, to a point where emotional, where now they are at such a fevered pitch, there's frenzy, to shift that they're no longer thinking for self. They're just kind of going with the flow, and they're like, oh, why? Because this is a good person. This is a good person. We see, and we think, hear us clearly, we think that we're like-minded, and so that if we're all thinking the same way, that our intellect is high. And I go, oh, nay, no. There's an emotional reaction, and we're actually going for security and connection, and it has nothing to do with the narrative. Nothing. It's just that these are my, I'm in this. What?
Right.
And
right.
That is, the world's in such a place of, I will say, and then ask us all to breathe for a moment, take a step. What's really changed? Just because there's different countries that are having skirmishes right now, that there's tension between North Korea and South Korea, this has been going on for a while. If it was the Berlin Wall, if it was the Shiites and Sunnis, we could go on and on. Truth always exists as long as people have about anything.
Right.
So we're not proposing you should believe in nothing. That's not what we're here to have a conversation about. What we aspire to everyone to have a realization is, are you getting triggered to a point where your emotions are outside of your control, where that energy and motion is at such that there's no unity, there's no conformity, there's no self, there's no center. You're all here, and you're like, oh, well, why is that a problem? Because your intellect drops like a rock. So,
right.
What's a solution? What's an opportunity?
Deal with the emotion. It's deal with that emotion. Deal with the emotion first before you go and make that decision. I mean, I look at the parenting, right? The niche that I'm in, the families that I help. And when it comes to, by the time I talk to the kid, after the parents text me saying, "Oh, you have coaching with so and so." Yes, I do. Could you please talk about this? This was not a great opportunity for us. I don't like the way it landed. And we just need some support. So by the time I get to that client, the child, and I'm talking to the child, first of all, they see it through a whole different filter now because now they're calm, they're relaxed. They didn't just get the fresh, no, you're not going again. It's been a couple days. They survived not going to the event and they realize that they survived. And so they're not so angry at that moment. So they're not realizing what they said in that moment to their parent. They didn't realize that the choices that they made, maybe it be words, maybe it be behavior, did not align with what the parent wanted to see. Thus, they're still not going to the next event, right? And so
Right.
it's an ongoing effect that keeps happening. And so when I talk to this child, I say, let me ask you something. What do you feel your behavior was directed at? The emotion you were having or the outcome you wanted?
Yes. Brilliant
And
question.
they're like, well, I mean, I said, you mean what? Did you really think telling your mom that you're never going to talk to her again was actually going to convince her to let you go? No, it didn't. It did not. As a matter of fact, it created more conflict
Yeah.
because you were rude. You were disrespectful to your mom. Now there's a whole nother problem that your mom has to deal with. And so now you're snowballing the issue because you made a choice off the emotions of the no, not the outcome of going.
Great distinction, Veenu. And part of this too is that there's a presupposition that because an adult is older, that they have all the answers and skill sets to deal with being emotionally. There's something to be said about being a parent, that there's no rule. You could read Dr. Spock's book all day long. Okay, bless your heart. That's amazing. Thank you. And you're not going to find all the answers because your child is uniquely yours.
Right.
And I found we have three different, yet so much the same in certain ways. So why do I go there? Competition is on a tonality, a different timbre, pace, languaging, because they have a different way of understanding their model of the world and how for them. See,
100%.
levels, right? And it's like, so where is their universe all about them? And I go, oh, they're formative years. They're all about them. All there, they hit those teenage years, and they're like, okay, well, room. Well, why room? I'm like, well, yes. And last, you don't do. And the only thing we're asking you to do is push space to a level of standard where someone doesn't walk and go, tornado landed in this spot. And so
Right.
why do I go there? There's this shift that starts to occur with realization. And we've seen this, and people go, well, what do you mean? If you've grown up with nothing, you take care of everything because you have to take care of.
Right.
Everything, there is a tenor of less. If people
Right.
go, is that really true? You can test the theory on your own. I will just say that in my limited experience with my beautiful children, this has been the case. We had this really robust conversation around this because I have a tendency to get emotional around standards. It's something that's been a huge part of my life. And I'm having a conversation with my kids, and where did I come? This is like amazing. You must be a Melkos because I have no clue how you inherited all these shoes that are exactly your size and only fit your feet. And so they're like going, everybody has shoes. And I go, I had 3 pairs of shoes growing up at any given point in time. There's my athletic shoes, which was for all sports. Didn't make a difference what I was playing. That was the sneaker for that season. Then I had a pair of dress shoes, and then I had a pair of flip-flops. I said, if you want to talk bare feet, those aren't shoes, but they're on me. So I guess I had 4 pairs of pseudo shoes. And why do I go there? I said, it was easy to take care of them. It was easy to put them away. It was easy to make sure that they were clean. Because I only want to play basketball in the loafers. That was policy. So why do I go there? Sometimes too many choices. And this goes to Venu's. You have so many different to. Mm-hmm. And when some people don't go to 1 or 2, they have a gambit. Like they have proficiency areas. They're great at multitasking emotions. They get angry.
I think it was fun.
Please.
No, I was just going to say, first of all, when you were talking about shoes, I only had 3 pairs of shoes too. I had tennis shoes, dress shoes, and sandals. That was it. And it's interesting because my room was clean because I didn't have a lot to take care of. Like I was visualizing what you were saying. It's like that was my life. And now we have this, again, generational gap, right? So I had less, so I wanted to give my kids everything because I felt bad. Oh, I know what it felt like. I was, I didn't have everything these kids had. And now I want to make sure you have everything because I never want you to feel the way I do. And now it's a constant struggle to keep their room clean. It's a constant struggle. Like, where's this? Oh, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? And in my mind, I'm still living in that mentality of scarcity of like, I didn't have a lot, so I took care of it, to now, just because you have it, why aren't you taking care of it? And you made a good point. It's, is there a reason to? Is there? It's just like too many choices is no choice.
Well, there's no scarcity.
Too many choices. There's no choice. There's no reason. Scarcity. And they don't know what the right choice is. And we really go back to the right and the wrong if there's too many choices. But if you just give a kid 3 choices, they're more than likely going to make a choice. Depending on, and here we go about tonight's topic, are they making a choice out of emotion? Or are they making a choice out of the context of what the outcome they want?
Exactly. It's this strange kind of counterbalance, right? And it's like, is one right or one wrong? No. When we want something, connection. When we can, remember this, all mindset is based on heart set. We think that it feels a certain way. So right. It's almost like anticipation, right? It's like then someone has a reaction, i.e. the term that, the they were triggered. They're like, well, no, I wasn't. That's so offensive. How could you say I was triggered? I was like, oh, you had a reaction. Oh, well, who wouldn't have? And it's like, wait, I said the exact same thing, just in a different way. Like going, oh, stop it. You're trying to wordsmith me. And it's like, wow, are you having a action? And they're like, am I? And I go, well, how are you feeling right now? Not real happy with you, mister. It's like, oh, my bad. Why do I go there? When we get so much energy that's up in us, as our friend and dear mentor Steve Linder would say, is like, oh, are you living in 3? Like now, all of a sudden, rules of engagement, rules like, oh, when this happens and this always happens, if I just go here, DEFCON, like the sirens are going off. Now I need to find number 4. I need to find some way of like getting going. Okay, so this is my way. I'm not a passive person. I'm an active person. I'm going to take this. It's like, oh, okay. That's one way we could go ahead and express ourselves. Another is, what if we just slowed down and breathe for a moment? And got out of our head. So that way we could, what happens when emotions go, there's a disconnection. there's a different part that takes over, and it's like that's primordial 10 million brain that's going into fight or flight. And if you believe that you're being offended, you will go into that fast.
Right. And I also want to bring the attention for all our listeners tonight is that this isn't just making a decision. This is even in conversation. When you're having a conversation and something lights you up, your conversation is no longer intellectual. It's no longer probably the purpose that you come to have this conversation about. Now the emotions have taken over. And again, when your emotions are high, your intellect's low, you're not thinking. You're not thinking of solution. You're not thinking of outcome. You're not thinking of that person and how they're feeling and their model of their world through their filters. So when we talk about model the world, it's important to understand what we're talking about is we all have filters that were based off references of our past that create our beliefs, whether it's from social media now, whether it's from our parents, whether it's from the church, whether it's from, something you read, but we are influenced and we have references that create these filters. So if I have this filter that, Chuck can never be wrong. Hey, isn't that a good filter? You can never be wrong, Chuck. No matter what he says, I can't see him being wrong because I have this filter. I'm like, no, Chuck said that though. So that must be right. It must be right because Chuck is always right. And some people might say always. But if I had that filter always, I am dead set. So every decision I make, having a conversation, it's like, well, I'm not going to debate anything with him because I know he's always going to be right because I have these filters. So we have to be careful. Number one, what are the filters that we have created? What are the rose-colored glasses that we have on to see something? I was just spent a weekend with one of my good friends, and we're putting together our event, Thriving Together for Families, and we were talking about you can have the same event, the exact same event, and say it's a car crash. You have the person in this car and the person in this car, but then there's a helicopter that was hovering over. Same exact event, 3 different scenarios of that same event because there's different filters. The person who created it might have a filter of, oh my gosh, what did I do? The person who is blaming is like, oh my gosh, it's all their fault. And the person in the helicopter who did not know whose fault it was, they just saw 2 cars collide. They're like, gosh, I hope everyone's okay. They're not worried about blame or shame. They're not worried about, who did it, who didn't. They're really worried about, is everybody okay? Because everyone has a different idea of it. And speaking of car crash, that's when your emotions are high, especially when you think it wasn't you. And it's like, okay, am I okay? Can I move my neck? Am I okay? Is that person okay? And then as soon as we know we're okay, now boom, emotions are very high. Now we're not thinking anything else. We're going to react. There's no response. It's all reaction because we are reacting to any emotion that has come up in us. And everyone has a different emotion.
Oh, 100%. And I'm going to remind everyone, this is when you're experiencing high emotions and someone's like, oh, wait, what? I thought this is only when the bad stuff hits. It's like, no. Mm-mm. Have you ever been so smooth with someone that you were in an altered state? You woke up the next morning next to someone. I'm not saying this has happened to anyone this session, in general, and heightened sense of emotions, and you're like, gosh, this amazing person, rest of my life, just met him 4 hours ago. And it's like, wise decisions? And you wake up and go, ruh-roh. Mm-hmm. So this isn't just when you're feeling challenged. This is when you are in an altered state. It could be adulation. It could be lust. It can be perturbed, franchise. You can, all these different emotions. And what Veenu brought up, imperative. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was like, that's where buyer's remorse comes in, right? It's that you have all these like feelings going on. You're so elated. It was the best seminar ever. And then you're like, yes, what's next? It must be this $50,000 seminar because I am in it to win it. And then you come home, the high is down, you're back to reality. You're back to like looking at your bank account. That's a negative number. and you're like, what did I just do? You know,
And
I
it can
used to
happen.
have buyer's remorse. Yeah, like that,
And
right?
how fast can it happen?
It's
Like you could be
and
here and rah rah, and all of a sudden they go, hey, and for 50 grand, you can be a part of this. And all of a sudden, people taking off to the back of the room, and it's like, oh, and you're going, the FOMO is real. Because now you just went from you to a state of scarcity. It's like,
right.
get mine. Here's a really important. Do you find that for most people with high emotional state, that those state gone into, or is it a responsive state that they fast? So now decision making, and
I
thorough.
would say definitely, yeah. It would definitely be responsive, like in that moment. Definitely, it's I mean, it's like 0 to 100. 0 to 100, and it's not even just being in a room. It's seeing something, and it's like, I want that. I've waited. I want it. I mean, I was saying that I used to have buyer's remorse all the time. I would buy all these clothes that I just loved, and then 2 days later, I'm looking at the price tag. I'm like, what was I thinking? This was not in my budget. And I take them all back.
Right.
I've done that. Like, I haven't taken the card back, but there was a time, about 20 years ago, I bought this new car and I loved it. And it literally took a whole week's paycheck to pay it, a whole week's, which was a lot as a single mom, but I loved it. And after 3 days of having it, or no, a month of having it, and I had my first time I had to pay, I was like, what have I done? Like, what have I done? And I'm being honest, there's a lot of people that live that way. That's why we live beyond our means, is that because we have this impulsivity, this feeling of the desire to have it, the desire to want it. I'm in love with it. I'm in love with him, her, I got to have that person in my life. I got to have that car in my life. I got to have those new shoes. And then as soon as you're no longer at that high of feeling so great, reality sets in when you look at your bank account, or you look at that person, or you have your first fight with that person. And it's like, oh gosh, what have I done?
And that's, you and I have, our prescription is slow down. You're like, I'm in love. You've known this person for 4 hours after you've had multiple beverages that may or may not have contained some fermented, I'll say wheat, hops, barley, grapes, some of liquid courage. And now you're like, oh, they changed. I'm like, you've known hours.
Right.
In the moment, you're having connection. Nothing they could say at that moment would set you off, because you are in this energetic vibe. What we're talking about is when we get into this altered state and people's frequencies are high, and this is what we're talking about, intellect drops, because now this frequency becomes like a magnet. Oh, here's more people with that frequency. We cruise this way. Oh, there's 75 more people over here. And all of a sudden you're looking, there's a collective of 15,000 people around you, all moving and not thinking the exact same thing, but they're caught into this loop of different layers of the same energy. This is why church is powerful. This is why concerts, people don't often know, I really hate this band. I think I'll go to their. They're like, "What? I'm a fan, right?" Like, I can't. I thought I'd give it a try one more time. No, people go because they're like, going, "Oh," and they're, well, how do they dress? They're all kind of dressed the same way. It's always really cool to see 80 revival groups, because you see the big hair come out, even if they've lost most of theirs, but they have ways so they can pull this off. It's important to note. People are like who? Like them.
Like yourself.
And so there you will find times. How do you have, not offending anyone, how do you have groups that are so polarized left and right and go, oh, they believe they're right on what? Everything. Oh, sister, I love these things. You saw it too? Too. How did that make you feel? Oh, it's like, and now all of a sudden you have a bunch of angry people together, or you have people that go, oh, no, life is amazing and rosy. And they're like, what? Do the people who are the negative Nancy's like, the positive Patties, and they're going, them laughing over there, having a good time. How dare they? Don't they know the world is burning, itself? And then the people that go, oh, don't worry. Life will be saved. You'll be happy. Just find the good in everything. Look at the positive side. And they're like going, you're just making me more perturbed. Why? Because you have two energetic centers that are not connecting at all. Doesn't mean they're bad people at all. So,
well,
please.
You brought up a good you brought up a good point about how people collude, right? Like they collude because they're either looking for someone to say you are so right in that conversation, so you feel now empowered by what you said through your emotions that you were correct. And then 3 days go by and you realize like, wow, like I literally just cut off a friend. Like, what did I say? What did I say? And then you go back to the people you collude with and they're like, no, it's not your fault though. It's not your fault. That does not help you. That does not help you. What helps you is don't make a decision when you are in the height of the emotion.
Right.
Don't do it. Right. Don't do it. Think about it. Sleep on it. And people say, oh, you're sleeping on it. You're going to lose that customer. I'll tell you what, I don't. Because I tell a customer, I'm like, if you are not committed to the coaching, if you are not going to show up, if you're not going to do the homework, if you're not going to take ownership and accountability, I'm not your coach. Don't invest in me. Don't invest in you. Right. Wait till you're ready to do that. And they're like, well, can we think about it? Absolutely. And I know that a lot of business coaches say, no, get their credit card now. Why? Because if they're going to have remorse and I'm going to refund their money and then we're going to do a couple of sessions and then I'm going to realize that they are not coachable, it took more of my time to do that. So you know what? Sleep on it. Think about it. Make sure that tomorrow when you wake up, you are just as excited about that decision as you were the day that you made it.
And Veenu, you bring up a great point, which is another side of this whole equation, which is motive and intention.
Yeah.
And so people go, why? When people feel like they've been wronged, there is charge. So if someone is trying to close the deal, they're selling. Right. There's nothing wrong with selling. I said, to Veenu's point, there are people who will collude post facto. And how many people have ever had that where they can justify any occurred because given enough time, you can resources to go ahead and say justified in my actions. It's like, you were a jerk and you should say, I'm sorry. And they're like, well, how dare you? I had every right. And I said, you are correct. And continuing down this path, the people that you say you most desire to spend time with will not be attracted to that part of your identity, to that part. It's not that they say you're wrong. It's just they don't resonate with that energy.
Right.
And that's not who they know you to be most of the time. In this particular instance, you went to a very different place than they are feeling you in. Not just seeing you, feeling you in. And frankly, you don't look happy. The scowl on your face, that, beady-eyed look, this thing, and they're like, are you just like not upset stomach? Like, was the curry hot? Like, what happened? What happened to you? And they're like going, well, what do you mean? I'm fine. Really? I don't know this person. Who is this? And then I go, what do you mean? This is how I react when I've been wrong. And I was like, oh, that's languaging. So why do we go there? People that you're closest to that are really confidants, you don't question their integrity. You don't. And Simon Sinek says this, and I love this. He goes, because there's value alignment. Yes, and yeah, I love you, and you gave me permission, and give it to you straight. Doesn't mean I have to be rude about it. I have to not in with your emotion feeling, but there's a real way of giving to someone and a play way. And the people who are placating you, empowering you, and entitling you. Ooh, not be your true friend. The only energetic connection to you is when they are in a field of discord and disagreement with the world around them. If you're on the left of the aisle, the right of the aisle. If you're a centrist and you're right in the middle, they go, oh, you're on the fence. You can't be wishy-washy people. It's like going, oh. So you're all in out. It's like, huh, interesting. A great analogy from someone. Oh, it's either really bland or ghost pepper hot. And I go, wait, like I can't can I go medium? And then, oh, you're not like a million on the Schofield rating where it will literally take the skin off your tongue. And I'm like, no, I like my tongue. It'll take food after I have the first bite. So why do I there? It can literally be that. And you're going, most people, and yet the polarity that when your emotions get high is that you lose center ground. Your intelligence quotient drops like a rock. And you are going to go out of fight or flight to the safest place you know, which is a peer group that has to be. Because when you can't comprehend why you're looking drawn to that environment, you may not make the best decisions for you and others.
So it's really interesting. Yeah. So it's really interesting, Chuck, because just hearing what you're saying is that where do these types of things happen? And I say all the time, when I'm communicating with my kids, when I'm communicating with my husband, when I'm communicating with the teacher, the principal, when I'm communicating with a client, when I'm communicating with my mom, when I'm communicating with a friend, a business associate. It's so important. Communication is the one thing that can make or break a relationship. Any relationship, communication. And so it's so important that going forward, what I think Chuck and I are trying to teach tonight is be aware of the emotions that you're feeling in the moment of your communication. And ask yourself, is this truly what I want to speak? Is this my true nature of person that's speaking, or is this the emotion speaking? And again, it's not just when you're angry. It could be when you're elated. What decisions are you making? What conversation are you having? What is coming out of your mouth? Because I'll tell you, what I sound like when I am angry definitely does not sound like who I am. It just doesn't.
Right.
People would be shocked. They'd be like, that's Veenu? Yeah, when she's upset, yeah, it is. And I own it, and I do better. Because if you know better, you do better. And it's really about coming to ownership of that was not the best me. And I love, and I still say it, Chuck, and you're here today on our show, and I've quoted you on my show, Redefine Parenting, several times. It's, you may have the best life and not be the best you, but when you are the best you have the best life, something like that. But I love it because that's so true. Am I being the best me in this moment? Or have I allowed, keyword allowed, the emotions to take over and take away from the person that I am?
I love you just said, and I've been guilty of this in the past as well. And bite on occasion, full transparency. And that is, when you're communicating with self, are you in that energetic state as well? When you're looking at that person in the mirror, and the relationship to self is so important, is now, are you allowing your intellect to drop? When you are in judgment of self, when you get so triggered, when you get disgusted because you're like, I made a man. Guess what, y'all? I can hold up both hands, and I my fable as well. I have a P in messing, which means I learn a lot of lessons when on the radio. Why is this important? I'm learning a lesson. It doesn't screw it up so often. I said, is I'm willing to step way outside of my comfort zone, way outside my comfort zone.
Right.
You're gonna break some eggs when you're making this omelet. I'm just letting you know. So as you're going through, it doesn't mean that you flip the whole carton over. Pick which
Mm.
eggs you break. You're not, again, this isn't paintballing in eggs. You're not just flinging to hit something.
Right.
Slow down, and be kind. The one thing that can help
Yes.
change this is,
Amen.
right? I mean, just almost like, oh, yeah, just be kind when someone affronts you. And I said, why are you feeling wronged? Did someone really intend to cut you off today? Did someone really intend to take your space? Did someone really intend to offend you? Or maybe just some state is something in their world, and we have no recall as to what that might have been for them, and yet we're having a reaction.
You brought up such a great point, Chuck, and I just wanted to bring light to it. It's the intention.
Mm,
And what's the intention? Is the intention, and I remember, so my husband and I have an amazing relationship coach, and it's a couple. And, when we were a couple years ago, when our communication just was not great, we were both so emotional about things that were happening that we were talking out of our emotion, not from our heart. And one of the coach asked me, they're like, what is his intention? And I couldn't, I don't know. Cause at that moment, again, my emotions were high. And so they said, okay, let me ask a better question. Is his intention to hurt you? And I'm like, no, my husband would never hurt me on purpose. Absolutely not. Was his intention to, you know, make you feel less than him? No, never do that. He would never do that. So let me ask you something. Is your intention to hurt him? No, I would never want to hurt my husband. That's the last thing I want to do. Is your intention to make him feel less than you? Never. So let me ask you, if both of you guys intention not to hurt each other, then why do you keep doing it? Oh, oh, because our emotions were high. We were in the emotion of feeling and not thinking about each
yes.
other's intention. And I think that intention plays a big role in our communication. I was just explaining to, when we were putting this content together for our event coming up in January, Thriving Together. And I was giving the example of when a child skips school and the parents irate. How could you do that? I can't believe you skipped school. I'm going to take your phone away. And when I ask the parents, what is taking the phone away for? Because they're not getting away with this. Oh, no, 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 no. They're going to be punished. I said, punish or consequence? Oh, well, it is. That's their consequence. I said, what does their phone have to do with them skipping school? Well, no, they need to learn a lesson. I said, what's the lesson you want them to learn? Is the lesson that you want them to learn to go to school, or is the lesson for you to teach them how to feel safe to come talk to you and let you know that they were really scared of that science test because they were studying it and they knew they were going to fail it. So they rather skip school than take that test. Is that the outcome you're looking for? That your child can come to you and talk to you, not feel scared, that they rather take the consequences of skipping school than coming and talk to you. And they're like, oh, so here's your phone back, because all the phone is doing is making your kid be mad at you. It's literally raising their emotion. It's because the phone had nothing to do with it. And literally, that's really not what you want, because I asked the parents, I'm like, what's your intention? Is your intention to hurt them? Is your intention to make them mad because you're mad? Because hurt people hurt people. Mad people get, trying to make other people mad. I mean,
Yes.
what is literally your intention? And they said, well, no. Now that you put it that way, yeah, I want my kid to talk to me. Now, why aren't they talking to me? And I said, well, they're not talking to you because you're taking their phone away. It's get to the cause, not the effect. Understand your intention. Get out of the emotion. Because I know parent guilt comes from the consequences that we have to follow through on that we give our kids. And we're the one that feel guilty because they're not going to the birthday party. They don't have their phone. They're grounded, or they have to go do something instead of going out with their friends. We feel bad, but why do we feel bad? Did we make that consequence out of emotion, or did we make it out of a way of getting leverage to teach them to make a better choice?
You know,
Again, emotions high, intellect low.
absolutely. It is ironic that there's a lot of these false, I'll say, correct made, and they go, why is it false? Well, taking their phone away, which you gave, you deem them to be responsible enough to have a device, so that when you're picking them up from school, making sure that they're in a great space, state, and so you want it to do what you need it to do, and yet when they exercise themselves in a different way, then we take away the sense of security that we provided to them. See, it's not the phone, like you said. It's what it represents: freedom, connection, continuity. And in this digital age, I can't even begin to tell you how often my kids use phone primary source for information education. So it's become a phone. It's a intelligent device to interact with daily, and they're connected to. If you're oh, great, I'll Zelle you. And it's like, and it's on their device. What do they use to pay? Don't even have to carry a wallet. You know what they're hardly ever missing? Their phone. Click, Apple Pay, whatever the case might be. Why do I go there? The same conveniences that we look for as adults, where we believe that this is what success looks like and we create a capacity, don't take away the security engine for your child or your spouse. And then I'm going to ask you to look in the mirror, or for yourself. Feeling trapped in a is completely another. Intelligence quotient, when we react out of pain or disappointment or frustration, and then we will use terms. Let me reframe that. I have in the past that I'm failing to the fact that this unbecoming. By whose standard? 99% of the rest of the world doesn't have this standard.
Right.
And I'm not saying right or wrong. What I will say is, moment, I was using my incongruency with my body and my spirit to guide my offspring in a direction that was going to be prudent for both of us. Because I didn't feel great about it. They didn't feel great about it. I was like going, oh, okay, this is like -1 level of relationship. It's not even good for me. It's definitely not good for them.
Right.
And it's not good for the greater good, right? I was like, can you have negatives? I go, I just made it up. So guess what? Original content. And so the beauty of it is that when do we get to shift then? What arrest listening tonight, where we can actually help them find more space and grace and some energy where they don't feel so have to and more get to.
Right. So the first thing I would say is, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. What's your intention? You know, like even when we're buying something, what's our intention of buying? Is it FOMO? Because that's, again, fear of missing out. And that's an emotion, right? Fear is the emotion you're feeling. So then you're buying, then I would say, hold off. You know, what's your intention? Is your intention to grow? And is this the resource you need to grow? Then buy. You know, what's your intention of buying the car? What's the intention of buying those clothes? Like the intention, you know, what's the intention of talking to your child angrily? You know, because a lot of it is, as much as we don't trust our kids don't trust us either. And that's a splash. They don't. And
right.
So when we're trying to get like, oh, I don't trust them, don't you worry. Don't you fret. They don't trust you either. What? They don't trust me. I'm their parent. Again,
Looking
so
for
right.
security
Safety.
and capacity. Yeah,
Yep.
that's 100%. There's this thing too, Veena, that you said, and it's the YOLO. You only live
You know,
once. So people will start to go, well, hey, if I'm only like my clock's gonna punch. So then kind of as this justification, like, hey, if I'm only gonna live once, I might as well go out with a bang. And it's like going, whoa, 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 whoa. Really? Like
right.
that's your rationale for this? They go, well, hey, Dad, you always say tomorrow's not promised to any of us. And I go, well, you continue on this path, you're gonna speed up that pace. Because I don't know that this is a great recipe for you to live in your experiences at this. So why date either?
Right. And that is it, slow down. You said that many times tonight. Slow down, take a breath. What is it? And here's a question that I learned from my other mentor, William Whitecloud. He says, what would I love? What would you love? And get out of the angst, get out of the anger, get out of the euphoria that this is a decision that you have to make. And just really keep going for what you would love, and hold that tension, and knowing that, is this truly who you are? Am I being the best of me?
Yes.
To give the
And
best of me out.
Yeah. Forward, and that was when we're not telling you to stop living. We're actually asking you to really connect with yourself. Breathe in your heart space. I know it sounds woo-woo. Give yourself the gift of slowing down. Do this after they have tantrum. Down, their heart rate slows down, and they fall asleep. They're exhausted. If you're constantly taxing yourself with high emotions that aren't certain, you slow down.
Yep.
Please give yourself that gift.
Agree. So again, I think the biggest takeaway from tonight is, when your emotions are high, you're not thinking, you're not making decisions based off of what you really want or need or love. You're making it off of that emotion. And when that emotion is no longer there, you are left with the decisions and choices you made in that moment. And some of those choices are unreversible. So allow yourself to go within and ask yourself just some simple questions. Is this what I would really love? Do I really need to do it now? And more than anything, what is my intention? What's my intention?
Beautiful.
So here we are. Thank you guys again for joining Chuck and I for another fabulous episode of Live Now with Veenu and Chuck. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Live Now with Veenu Keller and Chuck Hogan. Follow us on Instagram at Veenu Inspires and at Chuck Hogan Now. For more about Veenu, please visit VeenuInspires.com. And for Chuck, please check out YBLNow.com. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out SpanglishWorld.ca for all your news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.